we're going to talk about defining moments, moments that define your life. Now, for those of you who are not sure or not clear on what a defining moment is, it is basically, in a nutshell, it's an event or something that has happened in your life that changes your outlook and impacts the direction that you're going in. So it's really about perspective. It's a point where you realize something profound, and what you do next in response to that realization dictates or impacts the direction of your life going forward. A defining moment can impact your life negatively or positively. Usually, in a defining moment, you are wrestling with some sort of emotional reaction or temptation. There's something that's causing a tug of war. Usually, it's some kind of anxiety, usually, it's some kind of a panic. And the feeling of the emotion is so strong that it's undeniable. It really almost consumes you in that moment. And I thought about a scene from a movie that I saw years ago. The name of the movie was called oh my goodness, After Earth. There's a scene in that movie that I thought was really powerful. I connected with it, and I think that it'll help me to bring out my point about defining moments and what they are and how they can impact your life, because it's really about perspective. He and his son was on their way somewhere. Don't know where, can't remember, but their spaceship crashed, and the son had to go and try to get the beacon so that they could be rescued. Now, the father, who was Will Smith, he was injured. So he was actually the better person to go and get the beacon because he was more experienced. He was a trained officer. He was a fighter. He had, numerous victories under his belt, and his son was just a kid, still learning. But because the father was injured, he had to guide his son through heavy, dangerous terrain to get to the beacon. And they were communicating via like a telecom system or whatever. And the son asked him a question about how did he get to become so good at fighting off these monsters that they were fighting. These monsters were I think they were like invisible monsters. And so the son was like, Dad, can you tell me the story about when you became so good, or how did you become so good? And he began to tell the story about how he had gone out jogging and by himself, which was against the rules, but he did it anyway. And lo and behold, he's out running and he encounters one of the monsters. And the monster, they are fighting, and they ended up going over a cliff and falling into a river and sinking all the way to the bottom of the river. Now, Will's character was injured in the shoulder by this monster, and the monster was able to overpower him. And so while they were in the river, the monster pinned him down. And the character started to explain his thought process. Now, this is where he gets to his defining moment. He started to explain that he realized that the monster was trying to drown him. And he started to panic, and he started to think, oh my goodness, I am going to die. I cannot believe that this is how I'm going to die. I cannot believe that this is how my life is going to end. I'm going to drown. I'm never going to be able to say goodbye to my family, on and on and on. But then something interesting happened. He got distracted as he was thinking, and all these panic kind of anxiety was rushing into him. These emotions were overwhelming him. He saw some air bubbles going up into the surface, coming from him, obviously. And it distracted him for just a moment, but long enough for him to realize, wow, that's really pretty. That's what he said to himself. And then in that moment, It allowed his mind to really think and become rational. And he realized, wait a minute, I don't have to die like this. I can fight back. This is not going to take me out. And so the end of the story is he basically told his son, that's how I was able to overcome the beast. And in the process of overcoming the monster, I learned how to defeat them in the process. So that was the defining moment. That's an example of something happening to you that's profound, and it causes you to change your perspective, or it presents you with an opportunity to change your perspective. Now, sometimes it doesn't always happen that way. One of the things that I have come to learn in life, and I'm sure you all have too, if you've been on the earth longer than a minute, that you realize that life is a series of choices, and the life that we now are living right now, today, in this moment, is an output or an outcome of our thoughts and our actions that we did the days before, prior to that. And the life that we're going to have in the future going forward is simply the same thing. It's going to be the output or the result of our thoughts and actions and choices that we make today. And so that character came to the realization, and one of the things that he said to his son was this. He said, fear is not real. Danger is real, but fear is not real, except in your thoughts. It's a product of your imagination. And so what he was saying to his son was, you're going to follow your strongest held belief. And your belief is going to be impacted by the story you tell yourself based on the data that you take in. He said to his son, everyone is telling themselves a story. And in that moment, my story changed. So basically what he said to his son was, I thought I was going to die. I realized I wasn't. I changed my mind about giving in, and I fought back. I changed the outcome. That was his defining moment. Now, granted, he wasn't supposed to be out by himself. So that's a lesson learned too. Keep yourself in a position of safety. But even in all of that, he was still able to make a decision that brought about a powerful end result that not only saved his life, but allowed him to gather intel about the monsters that would help his army regiment defeat them or fight against them. It all turned around based on his perspective. Another thing I want to point out to you, which I thought was really interesting, is that the panic and the anxiety is always going to be, or those emotions are always going to be stronger because they are intuitive, they are reactionary. But there's going to always be a still, small, quiet voice that's very calm, or thought that's very calm, that's telling you the exact opposite. So what voice or what story you listen to defines your outcome. Your defining moment is something that happens to you that is crucial for you. You're kind of like at the fork in the road kind of thing. It changes your outlook because it impacts your perspective. Defining moments can be positive or negative based on, and this is the point I want to get to, based on your strengths and your virtues. So the saying, you never know what you're made of until you're in a crisis. This is where that statement rings true and applies. You don't know, you would like to think, as we all would like to think, that we would always do the right thing and always say the right thing, but we don't really know until it's tested. That, guys, it's really what I want to share about defining moments and how they can impact you, and what you do next, I should say, impacts your outcome and your future. And reflecting on them teaches you valuable lessons that you can take with you for the rest of your life.